Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the final webinar of our March Madness webinar series. My name is Patrick Zinda. I'm one of the support technicians here at Chesapeake Technology. If you ever call in with questions, you've probably ended up talking to me at some point in time. I'm usually kind of the front end for customer assistance and training. This is the fourth and final of our four-part webinar series here in March. March Madness, for our friends and folks overseas, is the college basketball tournament that starts here in March. It's now ended. I think professional basketball is starting up their tournament series, so we should just renamed it for this fourth and final one. Early February or late February, we decided to start with our new Geodesy engine. In 7.10, we made some fairly large updates to how Geodesy works inside of Sonarwiz. And then later in March, we also made a fairly big update to our magnetometer post-processing interface, added some really slick new tools to that as well. But for the latter half, for the one David did previously in this one, those first two were fairly heavy, very technical. So we decided to finish off with just kind of a demonstration of some cool tools inside of Sonarwiz, some really neat workflows for getting your data from start to finish and providing it to your customers. Just a little bit of housekeeping. This webinar is being recorded, and all the three previous ones have been as well. They're all available on our website, chesapeaketech.com, and we've also got them posted on our YouTube channel, so you can always go back after the fact, watch those as well if you missed those first three. And then finally, just a little bit of housekeeping. The GoToWebinar interface allows for kind of questions on the fly. If you do have any questions as I go over some of these tools, my colleague Chris is on standby. He can field those, but if I see them as they come up and they're fairly pertinent, I'll definitely stop and kind of address those as we go. And we've also got some time at the end. We can go through all the questions and I can field those then as well. So fire away at those if you have any questions. So for today, like I mentioned, the first two webinars were fairly technical. So we wanted to finish off with a kind of a story-esque webinar with solving the problem of getting data downstream to clients after post-processing. Sonarwiz is getting close to 25 years old now. There's a lot of different buttons and options, and as we've developed the program over the years, it's just been based on customer demand. We have a large clientele who comes in and processes their data, and then they've got a litany of different end users that they're providing their processed sonar data or contacts or grids or targets or pictures to, and Sonarwiz as a utility has to be able to support all of these downstream software. There's kind of split up into two main camps. We've got a lot of clientele who are providing data to folks who aren't familiar with the marine environment or who don't have access to really great GIS software. And so Sonarwiz has integrated into it some free options, stuff like the Sonarwiz web report, making screen recordings, or just bringing data right out into Google Earth. That way, a client that doesn't have access to a licensed software can still visualize the data and maybe even see some continuity between targets and side scan and things like that. But obviously, on the other half, we've got large projects where the downstream user has access to all the cool bells and whistles, whether that be GIS software or a litany of others. And so I wanted to show off some of the tools going that direction as well. And at the very end, we're going to talk about this new great partnership we have with Terradepth. They've developed this really cool program, AO, and I want to kind of go over that and talk about how we would get a finished Sonarwiz project up into Absolute Ocean, what you can do with that, and maybe some goals for the future for that workflow. So again, if you have any questions at all, please feel free to stop me. All right, let's jump over to Sonarwiz here. So what I have in front of me is what I consider kind of be my finalized project here. This data set comes from Harold. We did a workshop last year at the University of New Hampshire, and so part of that workshop, they spent a good day or two on the water, recording some test lines. We've got SideScan and Bathy in this data set. I've captured some contacts. I think this was all done with an edge text system. But in my first example, I want to put myself in the mind frame of I've got to provide this data, what I've captured, what I've processed to a client that doesn't necessarily have access to a fun program like ArcGIS or QGIS, Esri, things like that. And Sonarwiz has some really great tools integrated within it. If you don't have access to those kind of tools, providing a client processed XTF files or geotiffs, the max they might be able to do with that is just bringing a TIFF into like Windows photo viewer. What I want to do first is just create a quick geotiff, as I want to show you this first tool inside of our 3D viewer. As most of you probably know, as experienced Sonarwiz users, the geo image export inside of Sonarwiz works on a what you see is what you get. So the first thing I want to do is turn on all my contacts, all my targets that I've captured on the SideScan data set. And I'm going to make a low resolution geotiff just to kind of show you as an example. So we'll go down here to the export drop-down menu, and I'm going to create a single geo image of my survey area. And it doesn't have to be very high resolution. We'll keep it at a 0.5 meter, and we'll hit OK. And Sonarwiz has a really great, actually two really great integrated 3D viewers for visualizing data. We've got one that works more on the fly, the internal 3D viewer, and then we have a kind of more comprehensive external 3D viewer. I'm going to use the former for this first option. As if you've found a point of interest, you found a shipwreck or you have some targets that you want to quickly show to an end client without necessarily having to stop processing, export your project out as a geotiff, provide them that information. There's a really cool option you can do in the 3D viewer. So now that I have that TIFF created, I'm going to take my bathymetry grid that I've got here. And by selecting any item inside of the Project Explorer that can be visualized, if you go to the Display tab, we can open up this file in the 3D viewer. So there's this option checkbox here to display in 3D view. Getting a message here that says my voice is pretty faint. Can everybody hear me okay? Make sure. Chris, can you hear me okay? Okay. So I've got this bathymetry grid loaded into my 3D viewer. I'm going to go to the View tab and enable 3D view. And this is the internal 3D viewer as opposed to the external. And the tool I want to show you is I've got process bathymetry, and now I've got process SideScan in the sense I've created my geo image. And Sonarwiz has a really great tool to snap those two together here in the 3D viewer, and then we can create a quick screen recording of an area of interest that we can quickly provide to a client in MP4 format. So I'm going to go up here to the top left and open up this this context menu here. Come on. I think my mouse is acting up a little bit. Let's try this again. Oh, it was back here all along. And you'll see here I've got my my process bathymetry grid loaded in. And I'm going to choose to add a geotiff as well. So you'll see a whole subsection here for geo images. I'm going to navigate to my Sonarwiz project I've got here, and I'm going to load in that lower resolution geotiff. And by default, once I zoom in here and add a little bit of vertical exaggeration, you'll see because my geotiff doesn't have any depth data, kind of floats up at 0, even though my bathymetry grid has Z values because it's actual depths. So now I'm going to come up back to the content menu over here, and I'm going to select my grid, and I'm going to drape my SideScan right on top of my bathymetry grid. And just as a general purpose, this is a great option to visualize, kind of known targets I've captured on my side scan with the vertical information below it. So adding vertical exaggeration here, you can see that some of these rocks that just visually I can see are probably proud of the seafloor now actually have a Z value associated with it. But more importantly, now I want to create a quick video. All the tools and functions, the panning, the vertical exaggeration that I can do here in the 3D viewer, I can record in a video. So under the export drop-down menu here, I'm going to select record video, and I'll create a quick example. And now Sonarwiz is recording everything that I do here in the 3D viewer. So I can pan through my data set, almost like a waterfall image, and I can display a point of interest or a contact in my data set. And once I hit stop recording, I've now got this quick video file that I can provide to a client to say, hey, we found object A, or some unexploded ordnance or a shipwreck, as a cool way to just quickly provide visual information to the client. Now, with a normal side scan data set, I think this is off the coast of New Hampshire. There's not a lot of fun targets out there, but we do have a great shipwreck data set that I also created a quick video for. And the multi-beam below it actually, after adding a little bit of vertical exaggeration, really shows off the wreck quite well. So this can be a nice quick tool to provide a client. And switching gears to the paid fund products, everything we can send to the 3D viewer inside of Sonarwiz, that by default it will go into our external 3D viewer. Sonarwiz also has completely integrated the ability to export that entire 3D rendering into FleeterMouse. Obviously the price point of the free 3D viewer inside of Sonarwiz versus a full FleeterMouse license, that's a pretty big jump. But if you do have a end customer who has access to FleeterMouse, we can create those .sd files on the fly. So all of your sub-bottom profiles, all your bathymetry, these created geotips, all of that can go straight to FleeterMouse, which can be very convenient. And the second tool I want to show you is another free access tool that most people use is Google Earth. The program itself has its limitations. The geodesy is fairly inaccurate, as it's kind of using a baseline WGS84. But the ability to display data on a globe for free can be pretty useful, especially for clients that don't have access to GIS software. And almost every object that you can create inside of Sonarwiz has the ability to export out into Google Earth. All of our captured contacts, all of our geotips, really anything. So once you take an object like our contacts list here, we'll get those turned on. We can right-click contacts here and open up the contact manager. And of course, we have all of the tools for exporting out into geotiff, shapefiles. We'll talk a little bit more about that later, but we have a quick hotkey option for exporting straight to Google Earth. I'm actually going to cancel that because I know that's going to take a little while. I'm just going to do selected. We'll just do a couple of these. And so the nice thing about having some of the back-end geodesy transformation and image creation inside of Sonarwiz is that we can go from TIFF to KML to, we can create products in any format that is necessary from almost any of the objects inside of Sonarwiz here. So we're gonna pull these three targets out and display them right into Google Earth. Probably should have had this run already instead of waiting for it. Check to see if we have any questions here. So as we start talking about, the differences between, true GIS programs and the continuity we have with those and to Google Earth, there isn't a good comparison. Google Earth can be used mostly just for visualization. There's not a lot of analysis you can do inside of Google Earth. The geodesy isn't going to line up properly as you use something a little more specified in a UTM zone inside of Sonarwiz or a GIS program, whereas Google Earth is going to be a lot more broad. But it does give you a quick option just to throw data up into a visualizer for a client. So I think we've finished here. Should have launched Google Earth somewhere. There they are. So we'll open up one of these KMZ files that Sonarwiz created. So we're off the coast of New Hampshire here, and my contact is in there. And I can also do this with my geotips that I created. I have the ability to create coverage maps based on my coverage percentages for my side scan. I can also bring that straight into Google Earth as well. So there's a lot of great tools. Pretty much any object that you capture inside of Sonarwiz, you can also bring here into Google Earth. But again, there's not any continuity between my contacts and my side scan and my geotips. And so, a little while ago, what we ended up kind of shopping out and creating is this HTML web report. So again, we're trying to solve the problem with a customer does not have access to a downstream third-party software. What can one of our clients provide them that shows them their targets, their waterfall images, and the display of the side scan data that they recorded? So we're going to create a web report. The first step in doing so is I've already done this. I want to create a contact report in HTML format. And I did that prior to the webinar starting. And we can go up here to the top left under the post-processing tab. You can use this export drop-down menu and select Save Project as Website. And so Sonarwiz is going to compartmentalize all of this data that I've got selected here into an HTML report that an end user can just open up in any browser. So I've got my Sonarwiz 7 logo image in here. You can bring in a company logo, make this thing look fairly official. You can add the URL for your website. I named my company CTI. I gave it a title. This is an example from the webinar, and then gave it a quick description. And then inside this new created report that I'm going to make, I can also link up my target report from my side scan. So if I use this drop-down menu, I should see my HTML contact report that I created previously. And finally, I want to make sure that I include all my waterfall images. So I've got this option selected here at the bottom. So if I hit OK, Sonarwiz is going to pull all this data into an HTML report for me that I can open up in a browser. So in this HTML report, and the main display looks a lot like Sonarwiz. I can zoom in and out. I've got a geotip that Sonarwiz created for me. I've also got cursor tracking here at the bottom. So I've got my latitude and longitude and the projected grid coordinates for the coordinate system that I was in. You see I've got my logo loaded in. We've got a URL link to our website. But where this tool really gets cool is this, this left-hand side has been completely integrated into the TIFF in the display. So I've got every single one of my JSFs loaded in a waterfall display. So as I open one of these up and expand it out, I've got cursor tracking as I pan through the waterfall. And each one of my targets are also captured just as they would be in Sonarwiz. Zoom in here. Trying to find contact number 3 here. And as I hover over it, I can select the object, and all of the metadata that I recorded with that contact also comes along inside the report. So I've got my measured mensuration, I've got my width, my height, and my length, that reported shadow, all the classification that I did inside of Sonarwiz comes along with the contact report here in the web. And these web reports, are just 50 to 100 files stored into the web folder of your Sonarwiz project. It's very easy to zip these up and provide them to a client. And anybody who has access to an internet browser, this is Chrome, can just open up this index HTML file and have access to nearly the fully processed project. There's not much of analysis being done, but everything that you've done inside of Sonarwiz can be visualized with your waterfall images and your targets. So, but obviously, a lot of our clientele do have access to really fun downstream third-party software. Most specifically, we're looking at the GIS programs, ArcGIS, Esri. I have access to QGIS because I don't have any licenses on this computer. But a lot of our development over the past 5 to 10 years has just been trying to create an avenue for every possible downstream that we need for our clientele. When we updated to 7.10, a year or so ago, whatever it was, because we updated the geodesy library, we had to pretty much go in and click every single button inside of Sonarwiz to make sure that it fully functioned properly still. And I think in that test results, we found, we have over 100 different possible exports out of the program in a litany of different file formats. So really, whatever the downstream is, Sonarwiz has access to. I think for a great example, we can take our created bathymetry grid here and turn off my geotiff, my side scan. If I right-click my grid and select export, we've got a whole litany of export formats that we can go straight into. We've got ARC, Esri, Global Mapper. We can create surfer grids. And the fun new one that we've got is the Terradepth grid. So this is the first iteration of what we're trying to do to get the workflow from Sonarwiz into this new program, Absolute Ocean. The first option is just let's get grids up there, and so we'll talk about what that workflow looks like now and what it looks like hopefully for the future here shortly. But you see, we've got a ton of options here for just bringing data from Sonarwiz into. If we wanted to, we could open up Global Mapper and just bring this grid right into it. In the meantime, though, I want to create some tiles for my my side scan here, and we'll bring them into QGIS. So we'll turn off all of the other objects inside of the project. Again, Sonarwiz geo-image exports work on a what you see is what you get. So whatever I've got loaded in here, whether that be maps, map icons or grid lines, color legends, those will all get exported out as geotiff. So I want to turn all those off, and I'll create a couple tiles here. We'll do some fairly low resolution, 500 meter by 500 meter tiles. And now when we start comparing, bringing data out into free software like Google Earth opposed to GIS, we need to be a little more intentional because as most of you know, these programs have a lot of great tools and for analyzing the data, for comparing data sets over time. The benefits of bringing it into a program that's got a little more head knowledge is that we have all those tools to visualize and correlate. There's a fairly nice geodesy marriage where that used to be a little more difficult back in the day. Our front-end geodesy library is using Proj. Which is the same as most of the GIS programs out there. So as you create a project inside of Sonarwiz and you set up the coordinate system, that same information can be loaded directly into a program like QGIS and vice versa. even more so now with new tools that we've added in. If you've got a well-known text string from a projection file, if I take a look at my tile map here, and I open up my PRJ, the projection information file from the shapefile that I created, this well-known text string can now be used to just drop straight into the project creation dialog, so that I can make sure that my Sonarwiz project and my GIS program project are using the exact same coordinate system, even if I'm not using something baseline like a UTM zone. If I've used a custom 7-parameter shift based on a specific time transformation, that information can very easily be brought out of QGIS, ArcGIS, and right into Sonarwiz now. So, and finally, because our tools to export out into these programs have a little more versatility, we can really do some damage bringing the data into other mapping software. In these export dialogues, we can create a litany of different file formats. Obviously, GeoTIFF being the most popular in the industry, but we also have GeoPDF. We can create build raster images, IRDAS, PNGs. And on top of that, we also have complete control of the color resolution. In olden days inside of Sonarwiz, you were kind of limited to just 32-bit, 24-bit, and 8-bit, but now we've added full options to bring out grayscale images. And as we create these tile maps, we can bring those tile maps into QGIS. So there's a lot more flexibility when bringing it into a program that is built for visualizing data. So now that I have my tiles created, I'm going to jump over here to this kind of blank project that I've set up in QGIS. And it's very simple just to navigate to my Sonarwiz project and drop these files directly into my QGIS project. Go to my downloads here, go to the webinar, GeoTIFF, tile. Oops. I can bring in 2 of these tiles now. So very quickly, I can bring my data right from Sonarwiz into a program like QGIS. I can also bring in my tile map. I think this was the previous one I did, so it's only one tile. I can set the transparency of that. I can correlate side scan exports. I didn't go to school for GIS. Most of you watching will have a resident GIS expert who knows how to use this tool like the back of their hand. I think GIS programs are the only tools that I've ever had access to that have more buttons than Sonarwiz does, but you've got complete freedom in using a GIS program when your projects are coming from Sonarwiz, because we've designed all the tools for this workflow in mind. And so finally, I want to give some good time to talk about this new relationship we have with Terradepth's new program, Absolute Ocean. Excuse me. I've been reading too much about artificial intelligence. I don't think they're planning on doing that anytime soon. But so Absolute Ocean is this new utility that we started to partner with that has a goal in mind of solving a workflow problem that is fairly common in our industry. I haven't been around for too long, but even 10 years ago, a large side scan project was nowhere where it is today. Now we have customers on a regular basis breaking the 1 terabyte project size, and of course, as we start to develop Sonarwiz, that is a primary focus for us. Right now, we're rewriting. We're in the process of working on rewriting our CSF format to be more conducive with cloud processing, with working in virtual environments. And it's no longer conducive to process a Sonarwiz project and throw it on a hard drive and ship it to a client. Most clients want it now, and they have access to data storage up in the cloud. And so what Terradepth developed was this great tool to kind of serve dual purposes. So we can take data, we can take our process Sonarwiz project, and we can upload it into the cloud to provide access to everybody else on our team, as well as other end clients. But on top of that, we also get some really great visualization tools. we can take a lot of the exported formats that we've looked at today, all of our geotiffs and our grids and our contacts, and we can visualize them right up in Absolute Ocean. So this relationship has just started, so we're still in the process of developing some of these tools. As it sits right now, you do have to do a little bit of legwork in order to fully utilize a Sonarwiz project up in AO. So our goal for the future, we develop based on customer demand. So as our customers start to use this program and integrate it into their workflows, I'm sure we will add some great tools for just clicking a button and having your entire project be able to be up in Absolute Ocean and visualized. But for the time being, you do have to run through and run some of these exports first. When we talk about some of the specific data types inside of Sonarwiz, if you want to visualize your side scan, you'll have to create geotiffs, same with contacts. We've processed our bathymetry data. We'll still need to create a grid before we can bring or export in XYZ before we're able to visualize the data in AO. But even with that grid export, you can see we're starting to kind of create quicker workflow options to kind of streamline the process to get downstream to AO. So I've got my project fully processed here. So I'm going to move over to AO and I'll start uploading my project. Back here. So I'm going to create a new project as an example. And I'll start uploading this project. Now, let's get why this works. So we can get my files uploaded. And the convenient part here is if I want to provide this project to somebody on my team, the old process of zipping up the entire project folder, uploading that to a network drive or a hard drive, and then passing that along. In this case, I don't even have to zip it if I don't want to. The convenient part here is I can take the entire folder and just have AO upload the entire contents of the folder. I would recommend closing out Sonarwiz prior to doing so. There's a couple text files and other things that kind of will lock up a Sonarwiz project, but I think we should be good for the time being. So I can upload my 3.5 gigabyte project fairly quickly. And as this runs, you can see kind of the end result of what we're looking to do. I previously uploaded this project, not 30 minutes ago, and I told Absolute Ocean to visualize it for me. And now I have both a storage repository for my Sonarwiz project, or my process data, or my geotiffs that I provided my client, as well as a way to visualize it. Now it is nice just to be able to see the data where it's at on the globe, but this also gives you access to comparing different surveys. I shocked myself this morning, as I started to visualize this data set, I realized that one of the most common kind of example data sets that we use at CTI, we've been using it, I think the data set's from like 2007, this Klein side scan project that is plastered all over our website is just down the bay from what Harold captured in the University of New Hampshire. I processed both of these data sets probably hundreds of times, and I had no idea how close they were. So you do get a really cool tool of kind of a history of the data in the area, and a way to visualize, analyze, and compare between the two data sets. On top of all of that, it's fairly streamlined and easy to use. Again, I didn't go to school for GIS. I do have a lot of experience outside of Sonarwiz, but even the process of getting tips and connections up in a program like QGIS isn't necessarily easy for me. It's not my forte. But even processing data inside of Sonarwiz to create a project and get side scan visualized isn't something that you can do on the fly. You usually need a little bit of training. But for using this interface, it's a click of the button once I've got these geotiffs created, and I can visualize my side scan, my point cloud data, my grids, or my contacts up in the cloud fairly easily. So again, so right now, the workflow is a little bit limited from our end. We still need to create these geotiffs. The goal for the future would be, as our clients start to utilize this program, to add options just to simply click a button and have the entire project compartmentalized and zipped up so that it's compatible with a program like Absolute Ocean. But as our clientele starts to use that, we'll start to develop those tools. Let's see how my example project is looking. We're about halfway done right now. So in the meantime, I can switch over to one of my other projects here. Just switch over to this guy over here. This shows my limitations on how to use Absolute Ocean, because I'm not sure how to find my client project while I've got this one uploading. I don't know if I'll be able to do that. I can cancel this for the time being, because I know I've got it already loaded in. We'll go to cancel. I think I have too many programs running right now. My computer's screaming at me on the side here. There we go. So we'll open up my example side scan project. You'll see that Absolute Ocean has the entire Sonarwiz project stored, all of the contents, and it'll let me know which of the file formats and objects that I've got loaded in here I have the ability to visualize. And the process is fairly straightforward. I'm going to navigate over to my GeoTIFF folder because I created a litany of GeoTIFFs for this example. We'll go to the 32-bit option one. And all I need to do is select the object that I've created inside of Sonarwiz, tell Absolute Ocean what it is. It's going to be imagery. It comes from side scan data. I can use the gold color map, and I can tell it to visualize. And so now any of the objects can be quickly turned on and off. I think this is my tile map that I've got loaded in here, but underneath it is my contact GeoTIFF. I've got Tammy giving me instructions on how to use Absolute Ocean. I appreciate that. So a really great tool. Again, it's in the beginning stages of development, but as it progresses, as we start to have our clients utilize this tool, we'll definitely add more options to the workflow to make it a little more streamlined. So, and I know we've got a couple of the Absolute Ocean folks on the call. They are on standby to answer any questions anybody has on this utility, on these tools. And I think they're also running a really great sale right now for Sonarwiz clients in particular. I think it's almost 50. I think it's 50% off Absolute Ocean licenses if you use Sonarwiz and you're kind of willing to demonstrate that workflow. So please feel free to reach out to them if you have any questions. This is all I have prepared. I'd love to be on standby to answer any questions anybody has on kind of what we went over today. Will it be possible in the future to visualize borehole information in a 3D viewer as well as the web viewer? Currently, you can add any of the visual items you can display in sub-bottom data in the external 3D viewer. So all of your annotations, as well as the contacts, the reflectors, and those cores that you load in, you can visualize those in the external 3D viewer. The limitation right now for that web report is sub-bottom. You don't have access to kind of the same waterfall connectivity with your main display. So I know a couple of other customers have asked for that as well. We've got a feature request log for that, but right now it's not on our development schedule. It's not something we're actively working on, but it's a great feature request. Yeah, so Absolute Ocean's licensing structure is yearly or month to month. We've talked with them before. It's completely flexible to the needs of the client. You can purchase the product just for a few months as you work on a specific offshore wind farm or something based in time, or you have access to a yearly subscription. So good questions. Yeah, again, if anybody has any questions, I can reach out to you via email as well. And I hope everybody has a great rest of your day and a great rest of your week.